Good morning, everyone. Brian here with BMK Magic Explorations. This morning I have for us a little bit of a combination video. Today we're going to be asking the question, excuse me, I think there's a bit of a spot giving a glare here. Okay, I think that's a bit more clear. We're going to be asking the question, what is astrology? All at the same time, I'm going to put in a little minor book review too. I thought about doing them separate as I usually would, but then I thought it might drag this video on just a bit longer, but it'd be a nice way to get them both out of the way in one video, and I kind of just feel like doing it this way, so here we go. Now, astrology is a rather ancient magical practice, art, and as it's considered by science, a pseudoscience, which falls into the category of divination, which is kind of, with divination, it's not necessarily just trying to predict the future exactly. To a degree, yes, but to another degree, it describes a system designed to help us try to gain some divine or magical insight into the past, present, and future, which can help to advise us on what type of path towards addressing such we might decide to take, or not. The other end of this would be fortune telling, which is basically far less serious than technical divination. It's more the stuff, that you'd find at carnival, stuff like that, doing for fun, as opposed to being really serious. Your average fortune teller is more for entertainment. Though it's not completely useless, I don't guess, but divination is the more serious cousin and discipline, art form, and somewhat pseudoscience. Anyway, with astrology, it's the idea that various deities, major ones, rule over each planet or other significant celestial body, and that as the movements in the cosmos or heavens above us not only affect themselves, but also have an effect on us, humanity, as a collective, and individuals as regarding our fates and destinies. And that you can thus gain insight by charting out for an individual or group what their horoscope would be, such as a natal horoscope, which is where you begin, say, at a person's exact date of birth and year, and then you chart forward to see what insights may be gained and help to advise them along the path of their life from that point. Pretty simple. In terms of history, it all started out with the ancient Mesopotamians or ancient Babylonians back around 1800 BCE. As regards the Western astrology system. Later on, in about 1046 BCE, the Chinese astrology system would first be developed and start coming into usage, which is a bit of a different matter. They're related and have a lot of similarities, and there are some other astrological systems out there which are still valid today, but those are pretty much the major two. Anyway, over time it was developed, and the Persians and also the Greeks and Romans adopted it and kind of combined the original Western form of astrology from ancient Babylon or ancient Mesopotamia into what we would call horoscope astrology, which is basically pretty much the same as natal astrology. Natal, I guess, is just more of a, it's a more technical term and kind of is more individually focused. It's how you chart out for an individual person as opposed to a society, group, civilization, etc. Anyway, as time went by, astrology, they would build, it was also often paired with astronomy, the scientific discipline, though it wasn't quite, science wasn't really a thing for some centuries, but astronomy was around too. And there would be everything from observation posts or buildings built up on high or elevated hills or such, where a better view of the starry sky could be gotten. I mean, they hadn't invented telescopes or anything yet, so getting as high up as you could, it kind of gave you a bit better odds. I mean, back in the day, the ancients noticed, there were stars, and the way they figured out the planets was that the planetary, though they couldn't see them up close or anything like we can now, they recognized that the stars would stay pretty much fixed in positions for a long period of time, usually throughout a particular season and all, before the constellations would kind of change around, whereas the planetary bodies would move and change positions very frequently each night, so it only made sense that the planets were different than the stars. Anyway, as we get towards, the Middle Ages and all, and even back then there were court astrologers, royalty or, significant people like significant families or other types of rulers of particular empires or nations, whatever, would oftentimes have a court astrologer who would be the one who they would entrust with doing the astrology for them and consult with them. There are quite a few prominent examples. Also known for his work in, I forget the correct term if it's not angelology, and demonology. Dr. John Dee was technically also court astrologer to Queen Elizabeth I, and actually happened to pretty much, if I'm not mistaken correctly, predict the death of her husband by working out the astrological, his horoscope in the form of a natal chart, and she also had someone else, I forget whom, come and also draw it up and confirm his findings. So this was pretty serious stuff for people then. Of course, as we get more towards the Enlightenment period, with science not just starting up, but starting to take over and all, astrology started to go from something before that it had been studied everywhere from prominent schools of thought and universities and was taken quite seriously to kind of being, it started to get its pretty much pseudoscience status, and although there were those who still believed in it and still practiced it and trusted it on their life, I guess you could say, well, it just wasn't taken so seriously academically and scholarly anymore. And that was a trend that would continue up until there was kind of a revival and renewal of interest right around in the period of the 1960s, and that's continued today, but astrology never really went away. Even the prominent scientist Sir Isaac Newton was known to heavily study astrology. As a matter of fact, the person who wrote this book that I'm going to review for us, Ray O'Ryan, states kind of in the opening or an early part of it that she couldn't tell you any better how or why astrology actually works than Sir Isaac Newton himself couldn't have. Just she could tell you it does work. Which is a good point. That's part of the reason for the pseudoscientific status is because, well, there's no way to explain the mechanisms or how it works or doesn't, like a lot of magical practice and such of other types, it's kind of, hit or miss. We don't really understand everything about it. We know that it generally does work and can, but it's kind of goes beyond our complete understanding of it. We understand it some, but don't entirely know. It's one of those things that goes just beyond our realm of a full understanding, which pretty much any other magical system or practice, yeah, we typically understand them to a degree at least, and know, generally speaking, they tend to work well, typically, but how or why, we don't always understand that very well, and unfortunately, with the rigorous focus on empiricism of science, it would tend to classify just about anything which cannot be empirically studied and proven and torn apart as either pseudoscience or just plain junk and trash, which, yeah, I mean, I've seen examples of how astrology really does actually work sometimes. I mean, okay, let me give you an example here. Your sun sign or zodiac sign is the one you're born in during a certain period of the year. Personally, I'm a Sagittarius, the intellectual archer who's also, as a fire sign, can be rather emotional at times and tends to be a bit more of a loner. And honestly, although there are also cusps, trines, and other aspects which affect what your overall horoscope or natal chart would turn out like, every person I've known well enough and have known their birthday and all and could tell you what zodiac sign they belong to, well, at least in terms of, if not a perfect and complete one, in terms of a very, very close baseline description of what the personality, traits and characteristics, etc., somebody born under that particular zodiac sign would be like. Forgive my language for putting it this way, but I'll be damned if pretty much everyone I've known that well I couldn't tell you is a pretty, maybe not a perfect, but a pretty decent match for what is ascribed to what a person born under their zodiac sign would be expected to be like. So that part right there, I can tell you, yeah, if it's really just all pseudoscience and junk with astrology, then how could that be? For example, me as Sagittarius, I'm pretty typical Sagittarius in many ways, but nobody's a perfect match for their zodiac sign's baseline description in every way. Take my adoptive younger brother, for example. Haven't seen or heard from him in years. We really aren't in touch, probably could care less, and he's basically been disowned by myself and the vast majority of our family and relatives on my adopted mother's side, the ones we count, as he's proven quite disloyal and all, and thrown his lot in with our adoptive father, who couldn't care less about either of us, and has constantly proven it even to him over plenty of time. Idiot. But anyway, no, brother. Anyway, he is technically a Libra, the scales, which you'd think would mean, in a way, is from what I've known of him before, he is a fairly fair and just person in many regards, but at the same time he's kind of a contradiction because he can be something of an ignorant, foolish bigot a lot of times too, and that'd be kind of opposite of what you'd think a Libra would be like. So again, it's an example of how nobody's an exactly perfect match. But yeah, at a baseline, most people are that you get to know well enough. You'd notice if you know their zodiac sign, they're a decent match for it at very least for what they would be described as being like. And if astrology were nothing but junk pseudoscience, that couldn't possibly be true. Or the way that by charting out someone's natal chart for their horoscope, you could find out, you could actually later on identify the events happening in their life, which would be a match for what that horoscope is predicting is likely to happen for them. Now, that's not to say that everything, like fate and destiny is 100% predetermined. My belief is, to a certain degree at least, there is, and there's a path along which that it's what's going to be for us, but at the same time, we do have free will and some control over things, so the choices and actions we take along that path can influence how it goes. Say you have a good idea what your fate or destiny is supposed to be, and you try to take actions towards fighting it, avoid it, whatever, it's more than likely you're going to have a much more rough and crooked path, which is not going to, it's going to be bumpy. Or, there are also aspects, of things that do not necessarily have to be. They're not set in stone. There are actions you can take, like, say, there's some fair, you become aware there's some fair odds you may fall victim to an accident one day. such as say your daily horoscope that you get wherever, advises you to be very cautious that day because you might otherwise fall victim to a bad accident. Okay, well, you can help yourself to avoid that coming to pass by taking as cautious of an approach to everything as you can that day. And you may well end up coming out of that day just fine. Or you can just ignore it and go around not acting like you really care, and you may well become a victim of a bad accident of some type. That's basically what astrology and other forms of divination are about. They're not really, they give you insight into the past, present, and future to a degree through various means, but they're not necessarily a set in stone, hard, fast prediction. Oh, this is definitely going to happen. They're basically there to let you know, like, say you read a daily horoscope, it's going to tell you, oh, you might be cautious about, not being this way this day, or might be on the lookout for this to possibly happen to you this day because this is just what it looks like, all the conditions are set for this to go this way, very good or very bad for you. It's giving you some insight so you can take that under advisement and try to take appropriate action to have a much smoother, better day. There are also horoscopes that can be done for anywhere from weekly to monthly to yearly, your entire life. Of course, that gets a little bit tougher. Personally, although I dabble some, I'm not a professional astrologer, but I do get a lot of the basic concepts, and it's actually a very fun and interesting field to learn and know about. I mean, especially in a lot of Western and even some Eastern systems, it's pretty basically one of those things along with tarot or tarot cards, which is pretty commonly sworn by many and very, very widely studied. And I'm sure there are many who might watch this video and say, yeah, I can agree. This is not just pseudoscience junk. We don't know why or how necessarily it works in a full picture sense, but we know that in general it does commonly work a lot. There have been days when I've gotten a horoscope from something like, say, Astrology.com, which is pretty good. Theirs are a little bit generic and all, but as opposed to being 100% tailored to the individual. But I could almost swear of the daily horoscopes and such, and weekly ones I subscribe to, there have been days where daily horoscopes seem to really hit the nail on the head on at least one aspect of my day, and I'm like, and to think I read that horoscope and should well have seen this coming. It happens. So anyway, there's more to it than just junk pseudoscience, in my view at least. Some would say, yeah, it's nothing more than superstition and all. How could the planets and other heavenly bodies possibly influence us down here? Well, again, not sure even a professional astrologer could entirely explain that to you. I don't think anyone's ever worked that out. But there seems to be much more to it than nothing. Okay, so the little book review I wanted to include here is on Astrology for Dummies. Second edition. It's by Wiley Publishing. And let me see. I forget what. Let me look it up here. 2007 was when this one was published. You can tell my copy here is a bit beat up and all. In fact, I still got my place where I stopped reading marked here. I didn't get as far through it as I would like. I oftentimes have other things going on, but like a lot of other people in the, say, New Age, New Religious Movement, and then Neo-Pagan movements and such, other magical communities, I tend to be a pretty avid reader. I'm not going to say all are, because I'm not trying to really generalize, but I know a lot who really do enjoy their reading and studying quite a bit. Kind of necessary for this type of thing. Anyway, it's by who I was mentioning earlier, Ray Orion, I'm not sure how exactly you pronounce that, who is a professional astrologer. It says here who has been casting horoscopes since 1973. Excuse me, about 9 years before I was born, and has written astrology columns for well-known periodicals. Can't get a whistle out right now. She's also taught astrology to high school students and local social service professionals. And the book is very, very good, very, very thorough. Again, my copy I've had for, even before I moved here to Nacogdoches, Texas, really had it for a good while. So it's pretty worn, but it's still in reasonably good shape. Let me see here. We have a nice table of contents here, which goes over quite a few subjects. See, contents at a glance. Let's see, let's see if you guys can see that very well, but you've got mapping your place in the cosmos is part 1. Part 2, here comes the sun. Part 3, everything else in the cosmos cookbook. Part 4, using astrology right now. Part 5, the part of tens, and we've got an appendix with planetary tables and an index. So it goes over everything very thoroughly. It basically goes about just doing basic natal or horoscope astrology, because really the overall subject is a very big and vast one, and yeah, you'd probably have to have a book more like, instead of this thick, more like yay thick or so. I mean, probably have to be quite a bit thicker to go over the whole thing and all. And it's a very good read. I almost always, swear by the For Dummies series of books by Wiley Publishing, and also from Alpha Books, from the Penguin Group publishers, the Complete Idiot's Guides, because they actually go over quite a few different magical subjects, with good books on them, and by very reputable, knowledgeable authors. And although not nearly exactly the same, they are both put together in a very similar manner. They make it very easy, You're no dummy, but or on the other hand, you're no idiot. But these books make the subject so easy for somebody getting into them, starting out, or needing a good refresher, that you could well be a dummy or an idiot and still understand what you're learning about. For this one, I tend to give it a good, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say maybe about a 7 or 8. And my reason for that is because although it goes over natal or horoscope astrology pretty well, it doesn't really get into the other area of Eastern or Chinese astrology, which to me, since it's the other main system, it wouldn't have hurt to touch on it for maybe 1 to 3 chapters and all, and be a bit more thorough getting into everything and go a bit deeper off. So if it had done that, it'd be more like a 9 or 10 rating instead of 7 or 8. But 7 or 8 is pretty good out of 10, so I'd highly recommend it. You could still find a copy on this if you want to, really looking it up. And I'd say go for it, especially if you have a very high interest in astrology. That's going to be a very good way to get into the subject and get a good understanding of it from the most basic viewpoint, and go from there. Be prepared to do a lot of reading, of course, but that's a given. And I'm certain those who would do it would love to have that much reading on their hands. I do, even though I don't always have that much time for it. I will leave, I want to go ahead and recommend, even though I'm not under any obligation to, put in any ads or anything here. Not a, how you say, sponsored, or what do you call, ad sharing, whatever, not a monetized channel yet, but I would like to recommend Astrology.com, who you can get daily horoscopes and weekly ones, and even more so than that. They also have some more, those all are for free, and they also have some paid options for a little bit more customized stuff. Again, their stuff is a little bit more generic rather than being tailored to the individual quite, but it's pretty good. Like myself, I subscribe to and get in my inbox at yahoo.com every day a daily horoscope, daily love horoscope, daily love tarot, daily tarot, an overview which goes through all those, as well as, how do you say, I think it puts in a work or career horoscope too. And also, once a week I get a weekly horoscope, and that's all free before you really have to pay for anything. And again, sometimes I've had even those little generic ones like that, they've seem like it's on some days they've hit the nail on the head on something or other real well. So I'll go ahead and leave a recommendation link for you guys in the description for that, so you can go ahead and look it up if you haven't yet, because it is a good place to get those little daily delivered right to your inbox horoscopes and possibly gain a little bit more insight into your day and what to do with it. Also, my preferred YouTubers, Eternalized, has a pretty good video discussing the psychology of astrology. His videos are excellent. And History from the History Channel has a pretty good one, taking an in-depth look at astrology over time. And it's a pretty nice little documentary video. It's an older one from their History Channel. Actually has Leonard Nimoy narrating, but it's pretty fun, and I found them both to be excellent. So I'll leave recommendations and links to those three things. Excuse me. Seasonal allergies. In the meantime, if you enjoy this channel's content, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And please don't hesitate to leave any questions, comments, or suggestions down in the comment section below. I hope I and this channel have helped bring a bit more magic into your lives. And hopefully I will see everyone back here again in the next video. Have a blessed Tuesday, and take care.